right, everyone, welcome to this week's presentation from DBA Fundamentals. As you can tell, today we're getting started with SQL Server data security. I am going to stop that transcript before it drives me insane. It doesn't take much. Today's speaker is John Deardurff. Yay, John. As you can tell, today is February 14th, 2023. So happy Valentine's to everyone, because we all know that Valentine's means security, at least in the way of the world. So with that, in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see the names of the three leaders of the DBA Fundamentals group: Steve Cantrell, Shane O'Neill, and myself, Kevin Wilkie. To the right of us, you'll see our Twitter handles. If you have any reason you get a hold of us, that would be the easy way. John, bless your heart. Under our names, you'll see several ways you can get hold of us for various reasons. Meetup, obviously the way that y'all first got here, the easiest way to get hold of us and see the events that are coming up. Below that is our webpage, dbafund.org. It has all of our archives, all of our future presentations, you name it. If it has to do with us, it is out there. Below that is our YouTube channel, dbafundtube.com, where you can actually see all of our past presentations. And whenever we upload, you can watch them just right away. That's why we suggest you actually go ahead and sign up on or like our channel on there, so that you'll know exactly when we have our latest and greatest presentations. And then you have also John's here, which will be coming up in the next 2 to 3 days. Below that is our other various ways you can see all of our goodness out there: our Twitter handle, DBA Fun, our Slack channel, and our LinkedIn group. As I said, our sessions are all going to be recorded and usually available within 1 to 2 days. Please check us out on our YouTube channel, dbafundtube.com. Be sure to turn off your camera, and please be sure to mute yourself. I'm going to turn mine off here in just a second so that we can all focus on John and his presentation, so we learn all about security and leave his hands a lot. And if you have any questions, please be sure to put them in the chat, and we'll ask them as time allows. So with that, over to John.
I'll turn my mic on. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I'll go ahead and flip over to myself. This is me. Hopefully you all can see me. And now I lost all of you, so let me get you all back. And Kevin, I speak Southern, so I know what "bless your heart" means. So I've hung around Rhea enough to know. So thank you for this Valentine's Day lunch with me, everybody, to get to learn more about or getting started with SQL Server data security. I'll be your host or your presenter. My name is John Deardurff. You can just call me John because no one can pronounce my last name. There's my information. I work at Microsoft as a customer engineer. Actually, I lied. I'm now a cloud solution architect engineer. I forgot we changed our title. I've been a Microsoft certified trainer for 24 years now. One of these days, I'll actually get good at it. I have way too many certifications. If you'd like to know more about me, my Twitter is SQL MCT, my website SQL MCT, and my GitHub is SQL MCT, because I am the SQL Microsoft certified trainer. If you would like today's presentation, slides, handouts, I just put a link to it in the chat box. So my slide deck that we're going to use is in the chat box, as well as my demonstration code. So if you want to borrow it, steal it, anything out there, feel free. If you'd like to perform your own presentation at a future user group and you say, "I love John's slides," feel free to steal anything out there. And feel free to do your own presentation to teach other people SQL Server. So that's enough of me. Let's get on to SQL Server data security. So what we're going to talk about, what does this session cover? The three, I don't want to say three main features, but 3 data security features that were introduced in SQL Server 2016. There are more than just these 3, but these were, I don't want to say, well, game changers, I guess, as a way of securing your data, securing your data or obfuscating, hiding the visibility of your data at the data level within SQL Server. So we're going to look at what is row level security, dynamic data masking, and always encrypted. Like I said, there's other security features, but we only have an hour. I only have this lunchtime with you, so I could speak for 8 hours or 3 days. I normally do for some of my workshops at Microsoft. Speak for 3 days on security. We only have 1 hour. So feel free to ask questions, though. I'm watching the chat box. So if you have a question, pop it into the chat box. I'll answer it as we go, or I'll wait to the end when we go through. So we're going to start off with row level security. And we do have demonstrations for each one of these, for each one of these 3 main features. So the first one is row level security. I forgot what it was. It's the security feature that allows you to access or restrict access to specific rows based off of a value in a column. That's a lot of words. That's a lot of definitions. Was there a question? I heard someone's mic there. So that's the definition. I normally don't read from slides, but when it's an actual definition, I do, just to make sure I get it right. I think I said it right. I wasn't looking. It's over there. But it allows you to restrict access based off the rows. Prior to 2016, and these features are available in 2019, 2022, 2017, Azure SQL Database, Azure SQL Managed Instances, they're available. Yep, someone's sharing their screen. If you could, I'm not sure who's sharing their screen there. Thank you. Let me go back to mine. There you go. So thank you. I think I got you all back. Okay. So we just saw someone's unsecured data. There was an example of unsecured data during a presentation that might happen, and I might not want that to happen. So that's where you get into dynamic data masking, which we'll see in our next section. So row levels are prior to 2016. If you want to secure data, you really couldn't restrict it down to the row level. If someone had access to a table, select, insert, update permissions, then they could select, insert, update data, any of the data in that table. With row level security, it allows me to become more granular based off specific values, as we'll see in our demonstration. So different scenarios where you might see row level security used is like at a hospital, where I might want doctors or nurses only to see information about their patients. There could be health or regulatory requirements like HIPAA, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. There might be some legal requirements in that case, or it might be a bank where they want to restrict access just to different branches. Or our demonstration that we're going to see is where we might have salespeople at a bicycle company, maybe called AdventureWorks Bicycle Company. Yes, I'm using the AdventureWorks Bicycle Company database, which is freely downloadable. Just Google search or Bing search with ChatGPT, AdventureWorks, and you can download the database. You have my sample code. You can practice in a non-production environment. You can practice this code. But a bicycle company. So let's say, for example, we have 2 people. We'll click the next link. We have 2 people named Jack and Diane, 2 American kids growing up in this heartland. So Jack is a salesperson at AdventureWorks, and Diane is a salesperson, and they're both pretty good. But currently they have access. They both have access to the same table, the customers table or customer leads table. And Diane is a really good salesperson, so she's always making her quota each month. But Jack, he's a little green because he's jealous of Diane's sales record. So currently Jack could, maybe if he's behind in sales, currently he could go in and say, oh, there's Saeed Abbas from Alpine Ski. Maybe I can steal that customer. I'm going to change the salesperson name from Diane to Jack. And now that's Jack's lead. And Diane's like, hey, what happened? Where'd my customers? I'm losing customers. It's because of Jack, that Jack. We don't want that to happen. We don't want Jack to be able to see those other salespeople. So what I want to do is I want to restrict it so Jack can only see his records, and then Diane can only see her records. Prior to row level security, I couldn't do this. There wasn't a way, maybe I guess programmatically, might have been a way, but not something that was built in. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to implement row level security, and the value we're going to use is the values or the column values in the salesperson's name. I just used a very easy example, but it could be any value, any column or columns, however you want to create your filter on how you want to filter out your rows to assign permissions, or just, I shouldn't say permissions, assign access to specific rows. So let's see this in action, shall we? Look at that as a demonstration. I love demonstrations. As I mentioned, my demonstration code is out there. I think it's under, I think I have a folder named under the security folder. I put in that link if you go up one level in GitHub. I've got code for transparent data encryption, backup encryption, policy management, SQL injection. That's for a different security class. But I just have 3 scripts here for today. One for row level security called RLS demo, one for data masking, and one for Always Encrypted. So I just have 3 SQL, not statements, SQL scripts. Thank you. I could, there was notebook, but scripts. Okay. So I've already built a database. So we can see a database called RLS demo. This is the one I'm going to use for row level security demo and the data masking. So I went ahead and created that. And yes, I know that's not the proper way to create a database. Someone called me out on that once. I said, yes, but I'm just have a simple script. Next thing we're going to do, I'm going to create 3 users, just 3 users without a login. For security purposes, I don't want people to log in as Jack, Diane, and manager into my environment. But in a real world environment, those users, those logins and users would already be created. If you'd like to know how to create those, I have a script over here. Sure I do. Creating logins. There's a script on how to create logins and users, if you ever want to know how to do that. But I'm just going to create 3 self-contained users just for this demonstration without login. So they're just going to be used in the code. So I'll go ahead and do that. Boop. Now your code doesn't work unless you say boop when you hit the execute button. So I'm going to create a table with 4 columns and then grant select and update to Jack, Diane, and manager, and then insert some people. So let me go ahead and do all that. Boop. 8 rows affected, so now we have the data. Let's find out, is this true? Let me execute it as myself. I'm currently logged in as John Deardurff because that's my name. So I'm just going to highlight the code to see the table I just created, and I can see everything. I can see Jack, or the 4 records for Jack and the 4 records for Diane. So currently I do not have row level security turned on. So that's what I'm going to do next. Are going to. Now, I'm going to, as I'm demonstrating my code, let's see what the manager can currently see. I'm going to execute as manager, run the code, and then revert back to John, me, John, because I'm logged in with my John account. Let's see what Jack can see. Hey, Jack, what can you see? Execute as user. I'm going to run this code as Jack. Jack can see everything. And just for completeness, let's see what Diane can see. So currently I've not implemented row level security. Boop. They can still all see everything. So that's our default security, that we have. So now I'm going to implement row level security. It's just this code right here. Now this is the same SQL Server 2016, 17, 19, 2022, Azure SQL Database, managed instance. You could do row level security and all those features using this code right here. If you want to, you can copy and paste this code. You just need change the name of your function and your security policy and your filter. Basically, the hardest part of this, if you copied and pasted it, the hardest part of it is setting up your where statement. How do you want to filter out the records? I'll explain more of it here in a second. But the rest of it, you can pretty much copy and paste, and then just set it to what column do you want to go search for from what table that you want to filter out. So we basically create a table inline table valued function. Did I say that right? Inline table valued function. It's a table valued function. It returns a table where I create the tabular result set inline, all in a single statement. So I create an inline table valued function to create the filter. How do I want to filter out the records? How do I want to apply these permissions? And on what row? So here, just creating a inline table valued function named row level security. I'm going to have an input parameter that's going to be passed in. And I'm going to look at that value and say, I just want to filter out where the name that's being passed in is equal to the current username. So username is a built-in function within SQL, or username equals manager. Now, I always get the question, why is this lowercase and why is this uppercase? Because I typed this code during a demonstration, and I typed this code before a demonstration once 4 or 5 years ago, and I just typed it differently when I typed it during the demonstration. And I've just never changed it. So this username and this username makes no difference. I just have two predicates for my where statement. I'm saying where the filter name is passed in equals the current user, or username equals manager. The reason I added this in as part of, I think I was doing presenting this, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. And someone asked, hey, is there a way we can select the manager to see everything? And I said, yes, you would just hard code it into your filter. So this is saying, I probably want a better method, but this is just a quick, dirty way I did it in the demonstration at that time. But this is the hardest part of row level security. How am I going to filter? When I have customers asking me about row level security, I pretty much copy and paste these lines of code and then spend the rest of the day trying to figure out line 59. First, I ask what column am I looking, column or columns, but what column am I filtering on? What value? What column from what table? What values am I filtering on? So I try to simplify this as much as possible, but this could be a very complex 100 lines of code, if statements, or trying to if department equals sales, then blah blah blah. If department equals IT. But I try to keep it simple just to keep the demonstration simple for this environment. But that's probably the hardest part of row level security, is how do I filter? Because the row level security gives me that custom functionality. So I need to provide that. I need to add that in. But once I figure out how I want to filter, I create this inline table value function on how I want to filter my data within the table. Then I take that filter, I add that filter predicate. I basically add the filter predicated on, go look up the salesperson's name from the customer's table, pass the salesperson's name into this function, row level security function, which is right there. So if it says Jack in the salesperson's name, then filter out those records. If it says Diane, then filter out where it says Diane. So I'm going to apply a security policy, filtering the records on the customer's table based off what's being filtered out in this function. And then I turn on the security policy. So I'm going to create these two items, and now we'll implement row level security. Like I said, you can pretty much copy and paste this code and then spend the rest of the day. Well, first thing, what column are you looking at? What table? And then spend the rest of your day trying to figure out, how do I filter that? How do I filter out that column? What are the values? And then how do I filter it out? So I'm going to create both of those. Boop. Oh, I forgot it. Boop. There you go. I pre-boot. Okay. So I just created that, and we can come over here to row level security. We can look at our programmability. You see our functions, table valued functions. There's the function. And then my security policy is down here. So security policies. I can see now that my security policy is there. So I just created both of them. They're now permanent objects. They've been placed on my whatever. Oh, hey, hello. So that's creating that row level security. So now let's test it out. So I'm going to test it out as me, as John, as the instructor. So I'm not executing it as Diane or Jack. I'll execute. I can't see anything. I'm the sysadmin. I'm like the all-powerful Oz on this server on my laptop that I just got yesterday. Brand new laptop, so I'm hoping everything works. Surface Laptop 5, I'm so happy. My last laptop pretty much died on me. It gave up. We're broken up. We're never, ever getting back together. Let's check to see what Diane can see. Was that a Taylor Swift song I just sang? Wow. All right, so there's
Bless your
Diane. She
heart.
can see. Bless her heart. So we can see Diane. Let's see what Jack can see. Do you see what I see? So there's Jack. Got to execute. Boop. And now Jack can see his records. What about manager? Remember, I hard-coded manager into it. Oops, sorry. Manager. Manager. Let's execute that. Boop. And manager could still see everything because in the filter, remember the filter said if the username equals manager, then they could still, it doesn't matter what is in the salesperson's name, but for the filter name that was being passed in as the salesperson name being passed in, that's how that was filtered. Okay, but now let's see, since Jack does have update permissions, since Jack still has update permissions, let's go see, let's get the manager, who is Saeed. There's Saeed at Alpine Ski, who has been assigned to Diane as the salesperson. That's her salesperson's lead. So we know that Saeed, normally in the winter, they have skiing, alpine ski, but they've heard that, they want to open up a bike course. So they want to sell more bikes. So everybody at AdventureWorks is very excited to get that customer. So Jack has overheard this conversation. So Jack is going to be sneaky. He has update permissions. We can see if we go back up here. Jack has update permissions. We granted him select an update. Without row level security, he could go in and update those records. But with row level security, we saw he couldn't see them. Oops, sorry, scroll further down. He couldn't see the records. Actually, let's look at Jack. What can Jack see? Jack can see only his records. He can't see Saeed Abbas, that information. But he's going to be sneaky. He's like, well, I got update permissions. So I'm going to try to, Whew. Bum, bum, bum. There, I'm back. Okay. So I'm back in the saddle. I'm going to keep singing that. Am I the only one that could share? I guess everyone could share. Please don't share the screen, or share the screen, whoever was out there. Okay. So can Jack run this? So execute as Jack. I'll execute. 0 rows affected. So he has the update permission, but he doesn't have access to that row. If we go back and look at Jack again, he doesn't have access to that row. Now Jack could go to Diane and say, "Oh, Diane, I'm behind on my sales. Can you help me out?" She says, "Sure. You can have that customer. I'm so far ahead in quota. You just owe me 3 lunches next week." So Diane's being nice, and she can still, since she has access to that, she can update that record. And let me, okay. She can update that record. And okay. We can do that real quick. And you can see that 1 row is affected. So 1 row affected. 1 row is affected. And now if we go back and look at Jack, Jack now has Saeed Alpine Ski. What about Diane? Oh, let's go back. Diane. Oh, that's going to drive me crazy. I know someone out there's, she no longer has that account. So Diane was still able to update while she was the owner of that account. But now she tried to do it again. She wouldn't be able to. Jack would have to manually transfer it back. So that's row level security. Yay. All right. That was pretty awesome. Row level security. The next thing we'll get into, before I move forward, are there any questions on row level security? You can throw in the chat if you want to use your mic.
That was
Dante,
very nice.
why, thank you. Was it the
Hello.
singing?
Thank you for having the opportunity to ask something here. What about if I am getting data using Power BI and I apply role level security? It works seamless, or I have to do something else, something additional?
No, yes, no, no, yes. That answer all your questions? Oh, was that was ordinal. I was answering your questions ordinally. Now, since this is at the there's two parts to that. You can do row level security in Power BI, and that's at the presentation layer. When you set up the row level security here at the table level, at the data layer, that's going to carry forward from the data layer everywhere forward, whether it's a custom application or Power BI or Tableau, since it's at the data layer at the lowest level or at the closest to the data. So it will carry forward to Power BI. But you do have the option in Power BI to do row level security on that side as well. That answer your question?
Yeah, completely. I understand.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Let me share my screen again. Was there another question? Any other questions?
Other questions.
There's always
Let's
other
go.
questions.
Top one. Is there a decent way to use row level security if all users have the same logon credentials?
Yes. Since I was using credentials as my filter, but the great thing about row level security, I was just using the credentials as the way of filtering, but I can filter on anything else. So any other, oh, just messed up my code. So however I write this filter, so it could be by department or whatever column I want to filter on. So whatever column I can find within a table that has defining values, I identify those values, and that's where I create the filter. So it doesn't have to be based off login. It could be based off any custom value that you create. That answer your question?
I'm going to go with yes.
All right. I'm going to go with yes. Was there
I
another
like it.
additional?
It's
good.
Are there any performance implications from row level security?
There's always performance. I was laughing at it. I was in a meeting earlier today on Always Encrypted with Secure Enclaves, which we won't get into secure enclaves, but this is why we always get the question: is there performance? There's always a performance issue. I call it the trade-off triangle. Was that the time cut or no? Trade-off triangle, where you have security, performance, and price or cost. So if something's going to be more secure, your performance is there's going to be a cost on, or it's going to be more or reduce performance and possibly increase cost. Or something's you want to save money, then that's going to affect performance and security. So when you have security, performance, and cost, that's always going to have an impact on the other part. The trick is to try to balance. Now for this, the impact performance-wise is very, very, very small because I'm setting it at the data level and it's more proactive as opposed to reactive set of filters. So there will be performance, but like less than 1%, depending on the table, depending on the data. That answer your question?
I like it.
Sweet. I just made that one up. I don't know if it's true. It is. That's true. I saw that because I was thinking that this morning. Like every single session I ask someone, will it affect performance? It always affects performance. Everything affects performance. as I teach a lot of performance tuning. All right. Good stuff, everybody. Any other questions before we move on?
We're good.
Yo, that's for the guys in the queue. And to see everyone's awake. If you haven't watched Guy in a Cube videos, look them up on YouTube. Yo, for all the Power BI questions. All right. Dynamic data
Hey, John.
masking. Hey, question.
Hey, John, here. This is Manish with you.
And
Uh-huh.
I would like to ask, like the database which you are like having the demo, right? If we restore the
Uh-huh.
database to some other server, so I can understand like the database will move along with all the tables, all the functions, everything. So
Mhm.
how can we move the security? I mean, we need to reestablish the security part, right? I mean, the second demo which you have given.
Uh-huh.
I mean, first we created a
It is.
function, then we created, yeah.
It is. Wait, I mean, you can copy the code and run it on another. You can just copy this script and run it on the other machine. But if I
Uh-huh.
backed up this database, it's going to
Yeah,
back up the. Where are you at?
functions.
Program. Oh, functions. Thank you.
Yeah.
I couldn't find it. It was right there in front of me. It's going to copy that over as well as my policy. So it
Oh,
does. When I
okay.
back up, it's backed up with it.
I see. So the security policy will be also copied to the target server, I mean, to the new server, right? Wherever I'm copying
Yeah.
it. Okay,
Yes.
okay, got it. I was an
Yeah.
impression like we need
Okay.
to handle security in a different way or what.
Yeah.
All right. Thank
Yeah.
you, John.
It'll
That was
copy that over. Absolutely. Yeah. So it'll
perfect.
be
Thank you.
part of the backup.
Got it.
Same thing. If another great question as well. Uh, I know you didn't ask it, but if I migrate this to Azure, it stays with it as well. So it's not just
Oh,
moving from server to server, but it's going to be server to cloud,
thank
since
you.
it's creating those objects. Yep. Great
Got it.
question.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we go to dynamic data masking? Okay, going once. All right. So dynamic data masking. We didn't have it 3 times. Dynamic data masking. You probably already read it already. I don't think this is the Atlanta airport. I miss airports. I don't miss airplanes. But a security feature that will restrict unauthorized users from viewing sensitive data, or big fancy term, obfuscation. I obfuscate, Obfuscate. I think I spelled it right. I want to hide my data from users. The reason I might want to use this is we saw that earlier. Someone showed their Excel sheet as part of our recorded presentation. Now, it could be that someone is doing a presentation and accidentally shares emails, or developers can't troubleshoot production. Oh man, back when I used to, well, I still do consulting, but back when I was a full-time consultant, I would go to customers, build database, design databases, and they would say, "Oh yeah, you can just use this database." And about 90% of the time, I would just sit there thinking, I don't think I'm supposed to be seeing this information. Like, oh, we trust you, John. Don't trust John. I may look innocent, but I'm selling your data. I want to be rich. So the views of the instructor do not reflect Microsoft or any of its affiliates or associations. Legal disclaimer. But developers, shouldn't probably see that sensitive information. So you might want to hide it. Or back in the 90s, I used to work for a customer service center, phone call center. You probably have called me. If you ordered CDs from Columbia House in the 90s, you probably talked to me on the phone. But another thing that was kind of scary was I could see credit card information. Not anymore, but back in the 90s, no one knew about security. We did, but we trust John. We trust those 800 customer service representatives. Now everybody, is more secure. Or I've seen SQL Saturdays where people have done presentations, and they should just put up like a Power BI report. And I'm just sitting in the back thinking, I'm not supposed to see some of that information. I'm not supposed to see all your customer data. So that's some scary scenarios, right? Especially security is a big thing for us now. So with dynamic data masking, it allows me to hide, to mask, to put on a mask, to obfuscate, to hide, by using a series of functions: default, random, custom, and email functions. There's actually a 5th one in Azure SQL Database that's not available on premises. I haven't figured out why yet. In Azure SQL Database, there's one for credit cards. But for on premises, we still just have these 4. Even in SQL 2022, I've checked. They don't have the one for credit card yet. I haven't figured that one. Why it's not in 2022. I've asked around, no one knows why it hasn't. But anyway, so we have, and I'll show you in the demonstration how to add them in when you create the table, modify the table in the demonstration. So default, random, customize, and email. So let's look at them first, and then I'll demonstrate each one. So the default mask, if the data, this is just if I don't know what the data type's going to be, and I just want to simplify, I can use the default data mask. And if there's any date time values, you'll make dates January 1st, 1900. You'll make all the time midnight. Now, it does not change the data. I want to clarify that. The data still stays the same in the underlying table. It does not change the data. What it does, though, when it displays the data, it's going to show it. So if it's February 14th, 2023, the data is still going to be that date, but when it's displayed on Power BI reports or someone writes a select statement, it's going to show January 1st, 1900. If it's a numeric data type, and I know I always get yelled at about this one. I can hear at SQL Queen, Kaylin Delaney yelling at me right now. There is a numeric data type. What I mean by this numeric, I mean any number-based data types. Like integer, big integer, small integer, decimal, and yes, the numeric data type. Any of our number-based data types, I just tried to fit it onto the slide there, will show up as 0. So whether it's a billion or negative billion or 1, 2, 3, it'll show up as 0. String is character, in var car, can I drive your car? String characters, it'll just have up to 4 X's. We'll see that in a demonstration. Random, we'll just put a random value based off of a range. So I can pick a number between 1 and 100, whatever the range you specify. That's very straightforward. Just put in a random number. And again, that's for all your different numeric data types, your number-based data types. Custom, this is where you can create your own. It's actually use the partial function as one of those computer things. We use the partial function to create a custom mask. Why don't you just call it the partial function, right? Why do you have to make it confusing? But the partial is where you can create your own masking. How do you want to have? How do you want to show the prefixes of a value? Why do you want to pad it? And then what's the suffix? This one will make more sense in the demonstration. So just hold that into your brainy parts for a moment. And then email. I think that has something to do with email addresses, which will always show first letter 3 X's at 4x's.com. Even if my email address was, my home email address is john@deardurff.com. But if it was john@deardurff.net or .org, or if it was jenny@smith.com, or jenny@smith@AOL, jenny@AOL.com, there you go, or jenny@gmail.com. All those addresses come out to j3x's@4x's.com, whether it's .net, .org, .biz. So it's kind of difficult to reverse engineer that. So those are our dynamic data masking functions. And again, you have these on premises 2016 and later, Azure SQL Database managed instance. SQL Database has a 5th one for credit cards. I think it's actually easier to set up an Azure SQL Database. If we had a little bit more time, I would go show you. I don't have an Azure SQL Database set up right now. Okay. That's row level security. So my data masking code here, data masking, I'm going to use that same demo database I used for row level security. I already created it, well, might as well use it, right? So use RLS demo, boop. And then I just make myself laugh every time I do the boop, boop. I'm going to create a table. Now I'm going to add these masks. I'm adding a mask for each column. Now later on, I'll show you how to add and remove after the fact. I know that question was coming. That question's always the next. Hey, John, how do I do this after? I'll show you later in the code. But for salary. All right, so my salary is an integer value. Sometimes it's just for me. Masked with the default function. So since it's an integer value, that numeric base type, big int, small int, what's the data type? Default's going to make that 0. Salary is always going to show 0. Email address, I say use the email function, so it's going to be first letter 3 X's at 4x's.com. Voicemail pin, I'm saying use a random, so masked with a random. I'm saying use a value between 0 and 9. I could put in there 1 to a billion or 1 in a million. Well, I'm all over the board now. Company credit card. Like I said, in Azure SQL Database, they have a company card data mask you can apply. Here, I'm just going to use a partial or custom. I'm saying show me the first 2 digits, put in 4 X's, and then show the last 4 digits. So partial allows me to customize any type of masking I want. So tell them what you want, what you really, really want. I'm going to create that table, and I'm going to create the table, create user, test user, and then grant select to that table to that test user. We're going to boop. And now let me insert some values. So we have Jack, Diane, and our manager. You see their email addresses, adventureworks.net, adventureworks.org, adventureworks.com. You see all their other pertinent information. So I'll insert that data. And now I'm going to select, and can I see the data? I can see the data. Why? I'm all powerful Oz. I'm the system administrator. So I have the unmasked permission. I'll show you how to change that later in about 2 minutes. So right now, administrator can see the unmasked data unless you remove or deny. Sorry, deny. I forgot. Well, that's embarrassing. Deny the unmasked permission. So I can see everything. What about test user? Again, up here, I gave test users select permission, but I did not give them the unmasked permission. Grant, deny, revoke. Thank you. My brain was working on that. Grant, deny, and revoke. So I'm going to execute. And here's the mask. So salary, I said use default. Since it's a numeric value, I should have used money. I know that's a better data type. But even if I had money, it would show 0. Email addresses, remember, it was .com, .net, .org. So it's Jack, Diane, manager. Voicemail pin was a random number between 0 and 9. Company card, show first 2 digits, 4 X's, and the last 4 numbers. So I was able to customize. Home phone, I didn't put a mask. I'm getting ready to. For the record, that is my my home email or my home phone number from the 90s. So if you'd like to call John back in the 90s and order CDs from Columbia House, there's my phone number. All right. Oh wait, that one's not it. It's close to it. I fixed it. All right. Because someone got in a time machine and called me. Right. So that was execute. So what if I did want to after the fact, after I created the table? I'm going to go and alter the column home phone and add a partial mask. We see the first 3 digits and not the last 4 digits, because I don't want you all coming back to the 90s and calling me. So we go back, and now let's see, can the test user phone home? So I can add the mask out. I don't have to do it when I create the table. I can go back and alter the column later. Can I drop the mask? If I don't want to, I no longer want to mask salary. So I want to be able to, I want to now be able to see salary. So I'll drop the mask. So it's alter column, drop mask on that column. Boop. I forgot to boop previously. Now can test user see salary? Now he can. So they can see salary. Now, if I want the test user to be able to, so let's say test user is now, I want them to be able to see the data for some reason. I just grant them the unmask. If I wanted to deny administrators, that would be deny unmask to John, whatever my login or user account is. I think it's John. But I'm just going to grant unmask to test user. So now test user can now see, can see everything. Can see everything. Can now see everything. Woohoo! Party, 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 party. All right. So were there any questions on dynamic data masking? Was that a fun feature? Yes, there's a performance, very little. You know, the last part of having to mask always depends on the data. I mean, 3 records, it was instantaneous. If you have 1 billion records, yes, it's going to take longer, especially if I'm masking all the columns. Any other questions? Do I take a drink? Oh, my ice is melted. No. Did I break everybody? Was it the singing? Hey, Robert, there's a question from Robert.
Hey, John. But can you limit the unmasked? So if you've got multiple tables masked, can you limit it to just one table for that user?
Yes. Let me see if I understand the question. Can I limit the unmasked to just that one user?
No, to just
yes.
one table. So if you have 10 tables and they've all been masked, and you want to give that one user access to just one of those tables to unmask it, can you do that?
Yes. Let me think on that one for a second. So here I did the unmask, but it's just that one. So I did it to the test user, and that's going to be at the database level. See, now I have to drill down. So is the unmask, where's that permission at? Is it the database or the table level? So if I check permissions, we have test user, and I can't remember where that permission is at. So connect, there's unmasked. So it is at the database level, not at the, let's see, let's actually drill down to the table level. Was this employee personnel data? And let's see if the permission is down at the, down on the corner, you know, song coming. Is there unmask? So it's not here, okay. Not built in, not from what I can see, because it would be here where I'd go down the table level and then deny them the unmasked permission. So, yeah. So just from the quick answer, it doesn't look like it. Not using dynamic data masking.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great question. I had to drill down there. There might be a way, just off the top of my head, can't think of one. Can't do conditional. I do a security, maybe through a security policy, possibly, but not through dynamic data masking. Great question. Any other questions on dynamic data masking? All right, moving on. Our last lesson, our last section, always encrypted. Oh, I didn't put the definition on this slide because it's on the next slide. Now we're just going to focus on always encrypted. There's a newer feature in 2019 called always encrypted with secure enclaves. I'll briefly talk about it, but that's a whole hour session on its own. I just want to kind of discuss what is always encrypted. This is a security feature. Again, all these features I'm talking about today were introduced in 2016. They're available in all versions since then. Azure SQL Database, managed instances, they are available. So you can go back and use them right away. So always encrypted, excuse me, allows me to perform encryption down at the column level. As I know what's kind of what Robert was going towards there for that last question. How granular can I get with dynamic data masking? There's more at the database level. Always encrypted is so I can encrypt down at the column level. Not in transit. Well, sorry, it's always encrypted, whether it's at transit, at rest. What's the other one? At transit, at rest. There's a third when we talk about encryption. In transit, at rest. There's a third. But always encrypted is always going to be encrypted, even if it's stored on a hard drive. If I was a sysadmin and I was a disgruntled ex-employee, whatever, and I come into come to the data centers, I'll show them, I'm going to steal all the hard drives. I can steal all hard drives, but the columns are still going to be encrypted unless I had the appropriate encryption key. So I want to encrypt not only the drive, this is going to encrypt not only the drive, but in transit as it's going across the network. If someone tries to perform a man-in-the-middle attack, if I have someone on the internet has a listener on a router or an intermediate device out there on the internets, the data is going to be encrypted if they don't have the client-side encryption key, which I'll show you where you create these keys in just a moment. So based off the certificate stored on client machines. Now you could use things like extensible key storage or Azure Key Vault to store keys if you want to do it across multiple servers. For this demonstration, we're just going to keep it simple and just use a single key on my local laptop. But what it does, it basically, I guess I should have gone this slide, allows customers to securely store sensitive data outside of their trust boundary. So as data is going on the internet, or as data is going somewhere else outside of where I know is going to be secure. Be careful out there, everybody. I want to make sure it's secure. So prevention of data getting attacked or hacked or Big Mac'd, whatever. So when I query the data, it's going to be encrypted. How does it work? Well, it's actually encrypted, or it's sensitive data, and corresponding keys are never seen. Not even as a sysadmin, domain admin. I can't see. If I don't have the keys, if I'm not the gatekeeper, the key master, I don't have the keys, because as the query is written. So here's an awesome query. So from your client application, could be Azure Data Studio, Management Studio, whatever tool you're using. You write, select name from customers where social security number is 11223333. The ADO.NET client library that's on your laptop, server, machine, Windows operating system, wherever you have .NET installed, will encrypt it at that point with my client-side key, the key that's stored locally. It'll be encrypted. So as soon as it leaves the application, or as it's leaving the application, so before, if I have Management Studio, as it's leaving the application, it's encrypted. So even if I had access to the memory on your laptop, I can't, or desktop or whatever, I can't get to that data. It's already encrypted. All I see is that jumbled data, the ciphertext. So in this case, the query, as it's traveling across the internet, is looking for a social security number 0x7FF654AE6D. That's a weird social security number. When it gets to the SQL Server doesn't know what that value is, which causes a problem, which we'll talk about here in a second. But SQL Server doesn't either. It just knows it's going to look for that encrypted value because the data is encrypted in ciphertext. If I've done always encrypted on the name or and social security number field. So SQL Server just looks for that value. Social security number 0x7FF654 AE6D. Can I reverse encrypt it? Or can I reverse decrypt it? Sorry. If I had the key, I could. It might take me 6 or 7 years, but very, very unlikely. Any encryption could be broken given enough time. Could be a billion years, but given enough time, anything that's encrypted can be decrypted. Just given enough time to make it worthy. So SQL Server will look for that and return. And again, the result, the name is also encrypted. Return it back to the client, and then the client application decrypts it using the key, and the end user can see the data. But the whole time between when it left the application and returned back to the application, the data was encrypted. Nobody could see it across the network, the internet, domain admin, SQL admin, Joe hacker on the internet, web developer, none of them, they can see the encrypted data. They can see the ciphertext, which is not useful. So how do, we 1, 2, 3, we got 3 slides and then the rest of the demonstration. So we have 2 keys. There's a column master key that's used to encrypt the column encryption keys. So we have 1 key to rule them all. Then we have column encryption keys that I typically would create a new one for each column, but I can use the same one for each column if I wanted to. My encryption can be randomized or deterministic. Randomized is each time I encrypt it, I'll get a different result. So the first time at that top one, it was 0x0123. The second time I encrypted 0x01EB. It is actually more secure than deterministic. Deterministic is every time I encrypt it, will always come back with the same result. It's still secure, but it's less secure than randomized. The reason being is I mentioned that anything that's encrypted could be decrypted. If I had the ciphertext that's traveling across the internet, then over time I know if I know the encryption method that's used by Always Encrypted, I could, over maybe in 5 or 6 years, if I have maybe ChatGPT or OpenAI, figure out what that is. But with randomized, if it changes each time, then it's going to be hardly ever. I'm not going to spend 6 years and then 6 years from now realize, oh, that was when it was encrypted 6 years ago, but it changed each time. So randomized encryption is much more secure. The downside is that when I do the querying, I can't query randomized. I can query like if I was selecting just name from customers, but I can't query. I can't include in where statements or predicates, joins, wheres, any columns that have been randomized encryption. Because when it gets to this point where SSN is looking for this value, the column has this ciphertext. What I'm searching for is changing each time. So my SQL Server is not going to know what it is. And so the last time we was here, we encrypted it as 0x75FF. But the next time it was something else. It was a different ciphertext. So the downside, one of the downsides to Always Encrypted is you have these options, but you almost always have to use deterministic if you're going to use that column in a where statement or join or a predicate, unless you have 2019. SQL Server 2019 and later includes a feature called Always Encrypted with Secure Enclaves, which I said is a whole hour by itself. That we could have a whole session on Always Encrypted Secure Enclaves. That actually Secure Enclave means creates an area of memory that can actually do the deciphering in memory on your SQL Server. So then it can decipher it or decrypt it, find the value, get your query, and then return it. It does take a lot of resources for that. So there is a newer feature in 2019 that can solve that issue. Okay. Now, to be able to read the encrypted data in your application or Management Studio, you just need to add this line of code to be able to actually see the data if you want to be able to decrypt. So let me do the demonstration. I know I'm running right on time, or I might go over about 5 minutes. We'll see. It was all that singing, John. All right, so I created a new database called Encrypted DB, just to keep it separate. You got to keep them separated. I'm going to create a table for customers. We're going to insert some customers. We got Lois Lane, Diana Prince from Themyscira. It's like saying Themyscira. Themyscira. So let's view the data unencrypted. Maybe. There you go. That took a long time. That shouldn't have taken that long of a time. I mean, I got 12 processors now. Okay. So I was able to see the data. So you see all of our super friends there from DC. Are they all DC? Nope, there's a Marvel. Okay, there's 2 Marvels. Okay. So DC Universe. Here's some system views. I'm going to go catalog views where we can actually track down if I have Always Encrypted on, currently nothing. If I want to find what columns have been protected by Always Encrypted, you can borrow that code. Again, all my code is on my GitHub under that link I sent you at the very beginning. Hey, John, this class is awesome. Hide your thumbprint. Which might not be an issue this time because I just got a brand new laptop yesterday. Okay. So I can't do anything in T-SQL currently. So to perform Always Encrypted, I need to go to my encrypted database under security and I'm forgetting certificates. Always Encrypted keys. John's right there. I did it again. Where's it at? I can't find it. You can create a column master key or a column encryption key. I'm going to create one of each real quick. A column master key is typically used to encrypt all your column encryption keys. You might have one or many that's stored either locally or you can store it in an Azure Key Vault, Windows Certificate Store, or if you have a local key provider, if you've set up public key infrastructure in your environment. So we'll name this CMK encrypted. That sounds good enough. Oh, I was supposed to hide my thumbprint, so now you have half my thumbprint for my Windows Hello. Whoops. Generate certificate. So now y'all can, if you drive by my apartment, now you can use half my face to log into my laptop. But there's my Always Encrypted certificate. So that's going to be the certificate that's going to be used to encrypt my column encryption keys. So I don't have to do this first. I can do it through the wizard. I'm going to create a new one here, column encryption key for last name. I'm going to use that master key that I just created to encrypt my column encryption key. So it's going to make sure those are secure. So those are the two pieces. I can create these as I walk through the Always Encrypted wizard. But I wanted to show you how to do them pre-build. There you go. So now I have those two. Now I'm going to go to did I create a table? I did create a table, didn't I? Table. And sales.customers. I'll right click, encrypt columns, and just walk through the wizard. The wonderful wizard of encryption. I've got maybe 3 minutes left in the demonstration, maybe 4 minutes left in the demonstration, depending on. There we go. That was a little slow. Next. So the first thing I want to do, actually, was it last name randomized? I always forget. Last name randomized. So last name randomized. I'm going to use the column encryption key that I just created manually. And then social security number, I'm going to say I want that to be deterministic. Is that right, John? Is that what I said? Yeah, right there. Deterministic, so I can show you the both. I'll show you the difference. And here, again, if I didn't have a key already, I could say go ahead and just auto-generate a key. So I'll always encrypt those two columns. And since I said auto-generate, now it's going to say, okay, what master key do you want to create? Do you want to create a brand new one or use one that already exists? If you're going to create a brand new one, where do you want to store it? On Azure, local certificate store, I'll just use the master key that I've already created. And that'll create a new one, next, and finish. Now I'm always encrypted. Always, forever, ever, forever, ever. So now once this finishes, I'm gonna take a drink. Once this finishes, my data will be always encrypted. And then we'll see if we can view it. And then I'll turn on the column encryption or to unencrypt it so we can see it. Like I said, the randomized is the more secure, but you might not be able to use it on specific columns if you're going to use them in where conditions. But in 2019, you might want to, if you want to use randomized, then you can set up always encrypted with secure enclaves to be able to get around that one issue. But deterministic is it's still encrypted. It's still secure. It's still going to cause people, if they want to get to your data, they're going to still have to work for it for a very long time. Okay. So data is secure. So now I'm John. Am I John? I am John. Execute. Last name's encrypted. Social security number is encrypted. And I'm sysadmin. I'm John. My name is John. Here I'm going to use a variable where last name equals name. I think name is, was it randomized? So I'm probably going to get an error here. Yeah, mismatch encryption scheme says no. And probably same thing there. So let me turn on, let's say, column encryption key. And I'm going to put that in let's change my connection. Change connection. I'm going to add it into my connection by going to additional parameters. I'll paste that in. Now, if I am using always encrypted secure enclaves, this is where I'd go and set that up. I'd say enable, and then enable secure enclaves. This is actually newer in the newer version of Management Studio. Previous versions of Management Studio, check the box and then you specify the URL. So I've added some other ways of using secure enclaves in 2019 and 2022. But I'm just going to use the basic always encrypted. So this is if I want people to, there's certain people I want to be able to see the data, then I have to make sure that they add that into their connection string here in Management Studio, or if it's .NET code. So now I've done that. Now I can, yes, that's always encrypted, invalid object name. Oh, got to switch database. And now I can see the data, last name and social security number. Can I see the variable? I still get the error because last name was randomized. Can I see social security number? Or do a search on social security number? I can, because social security number is deterministic. It always encrypted the same each time. Okay, so thank you. Are there any questions on Always Encrypted? I know I kind of rushed, or we had about 6 minutes over there. But are there any other questions, concerns, songs you would like me to sing? Thank you, Dante.
Or we'll pay you not to sing a song.
Oh man, see, what's that? Oh, now I'm sad. Now I have a sad. Right. If you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at SQL MCT, or contact, or I guess I have my email address up there previously. If it's too many questions, I will start charging consulting fees. So there's Twitter, website, GitHub, my demo code, my slide deck, borrow, steal, anything you would like. All my code is not officially presented by Microsoft. My own is from John, not Microsoft. That was my legal disclaimer. But other than that, thank you all for coming. Drive safely. Kevin, do you have anything?
Yeah, as always, this was great presentation, John. As always, I expect nothing less from you on security or on any other topic, actually. And he didn't actually pay me to say that, just so y'all know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with that, please be sure to come join us again next month when we're actually talking about development lifecycle basics for DBAs with Ethan Blumen.
Cool. I need to sit in on that.
As always.
As
So
always.
with that, thank you all for coming. We'll see y'all next time. Have a great day, great week, and we'll see y'all then. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.